Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video. Sorry about that, my camera's acting weird today, but despite the stupid camera, we are still going to talk about this knife. This is the TS49 from TwoSun. I've had this for a little while now, and I've got to say, I really like this knife. It's my first foray into TwoSun, and I've got, this was not super expensive, but I did like the design. And actually, as now that I've got it in hand and been able to spend some time with it, I like it even more. There's a lot that this knife does really right. Now, I will say this, one of my frustrations about TwoSun knives is they're not always easy to find. So that makes me a little hesitant. As a reviewer, I'm going to talk about what I like about this knife, and then if you want to go out and buy one, you could have a hard time. So I just want to put that out there up front to say, yeah, I have some hesitation, and I'm not what you would call really a TwoSun fan. All right. Now, I know a lot of you are, and I got a bunch of comments last time when I put the first impressions up pointing out that, there are a lot of good things about TwoSun knives, and I agree. I think there are a lot of good things about TwoSun knives, not the least of which is the pressure that they put on the marketplace to lower their prices. And I love that. I'm always in favor of a company that tries to come in and undercut the market because it forces everybody to really sharpen their pencils, and that's, as consumers, what we need and what we want. That said, the two things that stand out to me as sort of issues with TwoSun knives are, number one, when I see a TwoSun knife that I like, and there have been a few. There's one right now that I see on Instagram every so often with a button lock. I think it's the Vanguard or something like that. Vandal. Sorry, it's the Vandal. I really like that knife, but I feel like I'm gonna have a hard time finding one when I want to buy one, or if I want to buy one. Same thing a few months ago, might even be a year ago now, but I saw the TS264, really attractive knife. I was like, now that's a cool knife, and I'm gonna finally bite the bullet, and that'll be my first TwoSun. That was obviously before this, but I went to buy it, and again, I couldn't find it anywhere. And one of the rules that I've made myself is don't chase knives. I don't know what's going on, guys. My camera's jumping up like that every so often. I think it's like the stabilization feature going a little wonky. Sorry about that. Anyway, I refuse to chase knives. I'm not lining up. I'm not, scouring the internet, nothing like that. I don't care that much. So I'm not willing to search high and low for one. I'm going to go to the retailers I like. If they have it, great. If they don't, then I'm just not going to buy it. And so that's another reason that I don't have a lot of TwoSun knives. So those are the two sort of issues that I have. More now, all the last video I put up, all of you talked about the fact that their quality has been increasing on a very steady increment. And so I'm just going to take your word for it. And so I'm sharing that here now. So for those of you who didn't read the comments in the last video, I talked about how there were a couple little hiccups in terms of fit and finish on this knife. And what everyone sort of said was, it's the TS49. As the numbers go up, the quality gets better and better, and the fit and finish and the everything kind of it gets cleaner and cleaner. All right. And so I'm going to accept that at face value. I can't speak to it from my own experience because I just haven't had enough TwoSun knives, and maybe I never will, but I want to throw that out there just to be fair that was one of the points many people made. Okay, now after all of that, we can finally get back to the knife that we want to talk about, which is the TS49. And to first off, let me say that I've liked this design for a long time. I did have the same issue when I first saw this, a couple of years ago, maybe more than that. I was like, oh, I'd buy that knife. I'm going to check it out. And, I went around and tried to pick one up somewhere, and I just didn't find any. And so I was like, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. And I kind of moved on with life. And then eventually, 2, 3 years later, I found one, picked it up from White Mountain Knives, and I've been quite happy with it. And I think White Mountain Knives still has this in stock. At least they did a few days ago when I checked. Again, I hate saying that because the minute I say it, the very first comment is, hey, I went to White Mountain Knives. They didn't have it in stock. I'm like, well, whatever. But they had it in stock when I bought this one, okay? So there you go. Size and weight on this is pretty comfortable. Okay, let's finally get into the knife in particular. And let me say, I do like this knife a lot, and I want to tell you why I like it. There are a couple little things I'm not in love with, but overall, pretty positive. Okay, so 7 7/8 overall, so it's a little on the small side, but 3.5 inch blade, 4 3/8 closed, and this is one of the things I like about this. This knife is in a really nice compact package. It's got lots of blade, right? I feel like I've got enough blade to do anything that I would need to do in terms of cutting tasks that I may have, and yet they fit that blade into a pretty compact package here at 4 3/8 overall in length. It's 4.15 ounces, which is not bad at all. And it's a little thick, a little, like you're right, it's a full 1/2 inch type of thickness, but carrying this in pocket, it does not feel bulky or uncomfortable. All right. And in hand, that extra thickness translates very well. It feels really, really good. And I know I'm skipping ahead to ergonomics, but it kind of needs to be said now because I'm speaking to, the comfort in a pocket versus sort of the utility. And I have to say that ratio or that balance is very, very good with this knife. All right. One of the things I think makes that good is the blade. So we've got M390 steel up here, which is really, really great, especially for the price point. This is like $100. And so M390 on any knife for $100 is a pretty good deal. Secondly, it's got this very thick blade stock. Like this is over 1/8 of an inch. Nice hefty blade stock, Tanto, sort of a modified Tanto. It's like a Tanto married a draw point, and this was the result. Um, Nice satin grind, so overall the blade is really good. It's still thin enough behind the edge that it bites into material very well. And so in terms of, now it certainly kind of leans to the heavy dutier end of the spectrum. Okay, so it's a little more robust in terms of the blade. It's got thick, we've got thick stock and a flat grind. That's going to make this a very strong, reliable blade. It's not maybe the greatest thing for, I don't know, really slicey tasks, but overall, very, very good. It slices good enough, and for EDC type tasks, I think it's a huge, huge win. Just let me clean off some of my fingerprints. There you go. So I'm a big fan of the way that they've done this blade. Really nicely balanced, a very confidence-inspiring blade, almost leaning toward the hard use end of the spectrum. Moving on to lockup and deployment. Now, here's where, this is not the most amazing knife I've ever seen. It will fall shut if you shake it around a little bit, but it's not as smooth as some of the modern titanium frame locks you might be used to. I guess smooth is not the right word. It's fairly smooth, but it's just not as sort of drop shutty. It's just not as enjoyable as an action as some knives that you may have experienced. That said, it's very effective, right? It locks up well. It deploys nicely. It's nice and snappy in the detent. The lock bar is very accessible, easy to function, right? So, in terms of manipulating this knife, if you're one of those fidgety type guys, this knife is just fine. It's just not going to be that super hydraulic drop shut that maybe you see in some others. But remember, this is only $100. So, if you're comparing this, I don't know, something for $200 or $300 or $400, that's not really a fair comparison. For this price point, I cannot really complain about the action at all. It's very, very nice. The complaint I could potentially offer is the flipper tab is just a little sharp, but honestly, I feel like I'm being nitpicky at that point. It's just not that bad. All right. So lockup, deployment, overall action, very, very nice. I can't, again, we have to be fair, you have to consider the price point when having this conversation. All right, so finally moving down to the handle. Now there are a couple of versions of this. I happen to go with the micarta. It's sort of a heavy canvas micarta, and it is quite heavily textured. There's a little bit of a design here with the 3 lines. We've got the TwoSun logo milled in over here. I don't love that. I feel like it takes away from the design a little bit. On the back side, of course, it's just plain tie, or on the lock side, I should say, just plain tie, which is fine. No big issue with that. So, that's kind of an overview. We've got a wow. We've got a lanyard hole back here and a full titanium backspacer. The inlay is proud of the scales. I just want to point that out. That was something that threw me off when I first picked up the knife. And the fit and finish around this whole thing is fine, but it's not what I would call amazing. All right, a couple little, even this line is okay. So there are a couple little hiccups in terms of fit and finish, but again, this is $100 titanium frame lock with M390. Um, Honestly, you cannot complain. Even at $200, I think this would be fine, right? I would not complain about the very minor nitpicky issues that perhaps we could bring up. Now, lastly, I've got to talk about, oh, I guess I should point out the clip is one thing I will complain about. So the clip does not have a lot of space here. I find in thicker pants, I get that, I get it really pushing out and I can't always get it to sink all the way into my pocket. If I move it, I often wear 511s and you'll know how a lot of them have those little sort of front coin pockets. If I move it there, that works really well. If I'm wearing thinner like dress pants, it works really well. But if in jeans or 511s or like my Carhartt pants that I wear sometimes, the clip becomes a little bit of an issue, but it still clips. It just doesn't clip deeply and all the way. All right. So lastly, on the handle, the thing we need to talk about is the feel, and that is a win. This knife, because it's a little bit thicker, and even because this is a little bit proud, even though I complained about that, it feels great in hand. Very, very confidence inspiring knife. Like you just both, overall, that's the thing that stands out to me about this is just how good it feels and how when I'm holding it or even when I'm just using it in general, it feels like a knife I can really get some work done with, and I can feel very comfortable and confident thinking that it'll take whatever I'm throwing at it. Another point to add to that is the internal stop pin here. You see how they've done the internal pin so that when that engages into the handle, you're getting a really nice distribution of forces and you're adding extra lateral strength. So you're not fully relying on just squeezing the pivot to give lateral strength. You're relying on the interface between those internal pins and the handle, which I definitely like to see. It's a better, I feel like it's a better, stronger way of doing that. And so for all of those reasons, I kind of class this as a little bit on the harder use end of the spectrum. So yeah, those are all. I think there's a lot of positives there. There were a couple little things that I hit on, but it's really hard to complain about this knife. In terms of comparisons, there's not a lot out there. One knife that I did think of when I was, thinking of comparisons to this would be the Massdrop Crux. You could probably include the Massdrop Keen as a really nicely done, budget-friendly titanium frame lock. Okay, so that would be one consideration. I do want to just to kind of give you an idea. Here's another well done overseas built titanium frame lock. This is the Magurin Flix or the AM8 Flix, but this is $200. Like this is almost double the price, and it's nice and it's perhaps a little bit nicer. The fit and finish is certainly a little bit better, but certainly these are not in totally different classes. These are pretty close, and this is like double the price. Finally, I'll bring in a zero tolerance, only because when we talk about sort of titanium frame locks, especially in the North American market, ZT is going to be a big player there. And so I wanted to throw this in, but ZTs these days, this knife is like $300. Now they've got some cheaper options out there, but again, I think the value equation really makes a lot of sense here. Finally, just for size comparison alone, let me throw in a Para-2. There we go. And I know the camera's jumping around in that weird way. And again, I don't know what it is. If I even touch the table that the knife is sitting on, it does that. And I think it's the stabilization feature going wonky. Finally, quick size comparison with the Para-2. And the reason I'm showing you that is more to show you the size of this. I don't think the Para-2 is super comparable, more of an EDC style knife than maybe hard use. Okay, conclusion. This is a nice knife, guys. Like, I had some real reservations about trying TwoSun, and there's not that many of their designs that I really like. As I kind of scroll through their Instagram, probably 80% of the knives I see there are a hard pass for me, but every once in a while I do see a nice looking one. And if this is any indication, most of them are they seem to be pretty well built and coming in at a very, very attractive price point. So, value, quality, those things seem pretty decently achieved here. And in terms of this particular model, the TS49, utility and balancing, the last point I need to make here is balancing utility with being high end and classy and not costing a crazy amount of money. All of those things really come together in a pretty nice package in this particular knife. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out the channel sponsor down below. This knife has really done a lot to sort of change my mind on TwoSun knives, and as did your comments. Listen, guys, I do listen. I did pay attention, and so I'll try to get my hands on a couple of other TwoSun knives, but I'm not interested in chasing them, so it could be a while. All right, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.